Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Stacks event by Kameleoon. I'm Colin Kroll. I'm leading Kameleoon here in North America. I'm very happy to have you all with us today. Today, we're going to be looking at a really interesting use case. Again, Stacks is a chance where we bring powerful technologies together to see how do they solve a real business challenge. And that challenge today is how do we boost retention through personalized messages and even take it further? How do we not only boost retention, but also optimize for continued KPI growth and conversion? So I'm really happy and honored to have some incredible voices and technologies with us today. I'd like to welcome them to the stage. I'm joined by Olia Bosovic from Mixpanel. Hello, good morning to you. I'm also joined by Alec Haas from Hightouch. Hello, Alex. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us. And we also have Trig. Trig, welcome from OneSignal. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Howdy.
Guys, this is a topic that we're super interested in. I also want to just, address the elephant in the room. I don't think that we're saying anything that most companies don't already appreciate and agree with, at least intellectually. That is, they understand that a personalized message is more likely to convert than a non-personalized message. The devil is in the details, though, right? While they may believe that a personalized message has a higher chance of conversion, getting them to create personalized messages easily and at scale is a challenge. And what's even more is to take it from, say, a good program that can actually send out personalized messages to a great one that is not only personalizing, but optimizing based on KPIs that are really important for their business is very hard to do and very rare. And so I'm really excited to dive into this Stacks event and see how do these technologies fit in order to solve this problem. I'm going to share a slide here. It's going to show this campaign. I feel like it's important that we kind of set the stage with a story here. So let's take this instance called The Shop, all right? The Shop is a e-commerce platform that specializes in shoewear, footwear, and whatnot. This shop has a very awesome marketing team. They want to build a campaign to help promote summer inventory. The campaign that they're looking to launch is going to be measured by, of course, how many products are purchased, but they're smart. They know that they need to have an average order value. They can't just push discounts just to get sales for the sake of sales. They want to make sure that they have a high average order value. To help out the campaign, of course, they're going to have some, important fuel points. For instance, they can offer free shipping. They could offer certain promo codes. But again, this is a smart team. They know that they shouldn't just send out discount codes for the sake of sending out discount codes. They also know that there's probably more customers in certain segments that are likely to convert more easily than other types of customers. So in this case, the marketing team is going to come up with a retargeting campaign. They're going to say, you know what? Listen, what happens if we were to go after customers that purchased from us earlier in the year? Let's say, earlier this spring, they bought a pair of shoes from us. But guess what? They haven't come back in a long time. We haven't seen them since that last purchase. Well, we know, that they want to purchase from us. What happens if we were to try to reactivate them? How do we boost retention with these customers with, say, a personalized message? To help out, the data team at the shop has come up with a great formula, a great model, that is. They're able to basically help the marketing team understand which brand does this particular customer have a greater affinity with. For instance, does this customer like Nike, Adidas, Vans? The data team has made it easy for this attribution to be affiliated with a customer. And all of that information is now stored inside of a warehouse. But there it is, inside of a warehouse. And the idea now is okay, well, how do these good and great teams activate the data from their warehouses so that they can start to build out this campaign? Next slide here. I want you all to see what the shop has in terms of their tech stack. So in terms of data activation, this team is going to rely on Hightouch. They're very lucky to have that solution. in terms of like product analytics and really understand how those customers are behaving in real time on the website or the e-commerce site. They have Mixpanel, and to send out all of those personalized messages, they're going to use OneSignal. And of course, for any kind of optimization or personalization purpose, they're going to use Kameleoon to measure, to create those campaigns, those optimization campaigns, and understand what's working and what's not. So to kick off, I'd like to welcome you, Alec. You want to walk us through, how does Hightouch help us activate that data so that this marketing team at the shop can get started with the campaign?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks, Colin. So hey everyone, my name's Alec Hazy. I'm a product evangelist at Hightouch. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Hightouch, it's the world's leading data activation platform, syncing data from your data warehouse directly into your many SaaS tools. So all business teams, whether it's sales, marketing, support, customer success, need relevant, accurate, and real-time customer data to add critical context inside of the tools that they already use. So whether you're enhancing communications with customers via CRM, optimizing ad copy, or personalizing email, Hightouch makes your data actionable. No scripts or APIs are required. So with Hightouch, there's no longer a need to write custom brittle code to integrate with third-party systems, because instead you just activate your existing warehouse data and sync it to any application that you need your data in. No one wants their data locked up in warehouse tables. What they want is personalized emails, automated audiences, and CRMs enriched with data from all their various data sources. So the benefits are immediate. Business teams can now own the business operation. Data teams set guardrails, and teams get access to the data that they need in any of their tools. No more endless reconciliation and no more fighting buggy APIs. So let's dive into the example Colin walked you through to see how Hightouch fits into and adds value to the shop team's stack. So if you want to go over the next slide. So for the shop team, their data warehouse contains all their relevant customer data from a number of different sources. So their web events capture valuable data from store interactions. Server events contain customer information, and data science models output rich recommendations. Leveraging Hightouch, the teams can send all these data points to their various business tools. Give me 1 second, there's a lawnmower behind me. Sorry about that. In this case, they want to sync email, first name, and product recommendation to OneSignal for email personalization. They also sync the user's LTV and brand affinity to Mixpanel to drive insights and segmentation capabilities. If you want to go over the next slide, we can dive in a little bit to how Hightouch operates. So we have 4 key concepts in Hightouch. The first one is a source, and a source is essentially where the data is coming from. Next up is a model, and that's where you really define what data you want to sync and activate. A sync is then how and when you want to send data, so you can do different mappings to different platforms, and a destination finally is where you're actually sending that data to. So now that you understand the basics, we can walk through kind of step-by-step how we're going to activate data from all your various sources. So first up, you want to connect your source. Typically, this is going to be the data warehouse, which is, in this case, the team's source of truth for all their business data. So in this case, we'll pick our Snowflake Data Cloud as our source and set it up pretty quickly and easily with Hightouch. We'll go over to step 2. If you want to go, there you go. So second, you need to create a model. So for Hightouch to know what data to sync, a model needs to be defined. And that model organizes elements of data to be queried from your various sources. So typically, a model is defined with SQL. Hightouch can use that SQL to then query the source. Models can also be defined with tools like dbt or using looker looks in the case your marketing team isn't super comfortable with SQL. In this case, you can see that we simply queried the shop's existing customer table in that top left image to pull in fields like customer ID, email address, first name, and brand affinity, to what Colin spoke to before, where we now have a table ready to go to be activated in Hightouch. And that's that bottom image. If you go over the next one. So one of the things that we know we wanted to have that we didn't yet have activated was LTV. So in Hightouch, you're able to use a audience builder to build audiences or cohorts before then syncing down data to destinations. This allows marketers to quickly and easily manage audiences directly from that source of truth that, again, lives in the data warehouse. So in the case to the right, you want to create an audience of spring purchasers to send to Mixpanel. Pretty straightforward, easy to use audience builder where you just do the drag and drop and set up your segmentation rules. If you go to the next one. So now we really want to start to pull in fields like LTV. The issue is, let's pretend like our data team didn't have time to actually create that field for us. Historically, we would have had to wait for the team, but now with Hightouch traits, we're actually able to create that computed or calculated field with no code to enrich those audience events. So in this case, we're going to create LTV by taking the sum of the price from all of our order completed events. That LTV field can then be enriched onto our audience and made available for analysis in Mixpanel or activation in other platforms. So we're really enabling marketers to do things that historically they would have had to wait for their data team to do. If you go to the next slide. So next is destinations. Pretty straightforward. A destination is a tool or service that's receiving data from a source. Hightouch integrates with over 100 destinations, including CRMs, ad platforms, marketing automation, and support tools. So for the shop specifically, we would create a destination for both Mixpanel and OneSignal. Again, straightforward, throw in some API keys, do some testing, and you're ready to go. If you want to go to the last step. So last step is then syncs. Once Hightouch knows what data to query from a source, a sync is then configured to map the data from the source to the destination. So the sync manages how the destination receives data from the source, as well as the frequency of that pipeline. So you can do some scheduling in there as well. So in this case, you want to define the mapping of the various fields, which again are brand affinity, LTV, and first name, that we want to then activate down to Mixpanel and OneSignal. Makes it pretty straightforward and easy to do. So once data is flowing from the warehouse, teams can leverage their most valuable customer data. So I'll hand it over to Mixpanel to exactly show you how.
What's really interesting, Alec, though, before we get started with you, Ole, I just want to highlight for everybody, because I know it's something that you guys probably see and hear a lot, and just want to pause there. Is it's one thing to say that you want to build this personalized messaging, but we know many marketing teams are very wary of asking their developers to get involved with anything related to their campaigns. It's a very sensitive thing to go and ask dev teams to build in tracking or to help with the activation of data. And I just want to pause there and say it's just nice to see a solution where you can feel autonomous and independent to be able to go off and get a campaign built without having to rely on developers. And the same thing with data teams. It's one thing to have that data team inside your company. It's a heck of another thing to get on their roadmap, get them to prioritize what it is that you're trying to do in a realistic time frame. So yeah, just feel it's nice to pause there and look at how easy it is to activate the data. That's hard.
I totally agree. And as a previous Hightouch customer, I got to see firsthand what it was able to do for users, and our marketing teams were able to fly. That was primarily the reason why I actually left and decided to join the team. So couldn't agree more, Colin.
That's one of the things that helps us with server-side experimentations. Everybody wants to do server-side testing, but to ask the developers to come in and code tracking and code in external segments, it just takes up a lot more developer bandwidth. It's relatively easy to do, but just those small things to get on those roadmaps and to get in those agile scrums to get them done is really hard. So really exciting to see what that does. Thank you so much. Sorry, Ole, I stole your thunder. I just wanted to pause there because that's such an important point.
No, thank you for that. And Hightouch is one of our, all of the partners on this call are great partners of ours, but more and more we see companies using Hightouch and their solution to get the data into Mixpanel, and not only to route the data to us, but also like Alec mentioned, and what we're going to use in our use case today, get the data that normally, traditionally, we wouldn't get just from the website or from the app or from the user interactions with the product. And so that's going to really change the game of how personalized you can get. And it's just going to take it to the next level of analysis and being able to truly build that profile of your customer, right? Because we already get a lot in Mixpanel. And so I'll switch now to just kind of, for those of you all that are not familiar, we are a self-service product analytics tool that allows product and a lot of times marketing teams, that's another use case of ours, really get deep user insights and interactions with the product really fast. And so, what does that mean? So we're event-based, right? User interacts, we call them events, user-centric solution. And so, I'll talk a little bit about our data model here in a second, but the main point of, there's a lot of things that I think make us different, but technically speaking, you don't need to know SQL. You don't need to be a data scientist or a wizard that I know so many of my colleagues and partners are, to be able to get those answers really fast. And product and marketing teams need those answers, right? Because consumers, they're moving so fast, and one minute you have their attention, the next time you don't. And so being able to get insights into what's working and what's not really fast is really important. And so if we go to the next slide, please, just to tell you a little bit how the journey works. So for a lot of our customers, this journey usually starts with asking questions. Questions like you see here on the top left corner. How many daily, weekly, or even monthly active users do I have? And it just all depends on the natural frequency of your product, right? That will determine which one you want to ask. And then who are they, right? What do they look like? What is their profile? From there, we go to explore. How do they use my product? And what really makes them stick around? And, that's a hard question to answer, right? Like, what makes that habit? What forms that habit? What can we do to make sure that the users keep coming back? Because as we all know, it is very expensive to acquire users. And if we lose them, then we're just constantly paying to acquire users. And so from there, you can group those users by truly limitless number of criteria. And in our shop use case today, we're going to just address a couple of them. I'm going to show example of a couple of them, but limitless number of behavioral and demographic criteria to keep exploring what's going on and how are they using the product. And then next we go to build. We are built for teams, right? There's so many teams in today's world. We all need to collaborate and we all need to work together. It is not enough just for one team to know what's going on if it's not passed on to the other teams, if there's no true collaboration with that data. So when there is an insight that we discover, we want to share it with the team. So it's really easy to do that by building dashboards, by creating reports and sharing them with the team. We have a Slack integration, and we have different admin tools that really make the data usable and clean, regardless of how many people or teams use our tool. And last, we move to learn, right? Like, well, it's great if we can get all these insights, but if we're not putting them into action, if we're not learning from them, it's basically a waste of valuable insights. And so finally, we have those really powerful reports that can help you learn if the strategy is truly working. And again, in our use case today with the shop, we're focused on the marketing use case of our efforts in terms of that personalized messaging. Are they bringing the results we want? And so is the strategy working? Allowing the team to really get aligned on the most high leveraged project or features, right? Because again, we're primarily, our use case is product teams, and similarly marketing. So really helping teams focus and really hone in on what are the most important product features or marketing initiatives that are really bringing results that we should focus on. And if we go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So how does this work? I mentioned event-based product analytics. So we're helping you track the user interactions. And then as the product evolves, our data model really lets product and marketing teams dig into the behaviors, right? Because that's what is really the events are based on. What are the users doing? And those demographics. So in Mixpanel, you always have a profile of a customer. And I mentioned that with partners like Hightouch, we can really take that profile to the next level because certain criteria, certain qualities we don't get just from those interactions with the product. And there we can measure successful outcomes for these customers. And just as a reminder, right, the fact that you don't need technical SQL just makes it really fast. You can really get answers in a matter of minutes and sometimes seconds. And so now back to our use case. So, we are working with the shop. We mentioned the data's coming in to us from Hightouch, or it could be coming from different sources. But really what we're wanting to do is, what we're looking at here is we want to build a really smart segment of customers for that tailored personalization. So what we're looking at is a screenshot of, we call them cohorts, right? You might hear segments sometimes you might hear cohorts. That's what we call them in Mixpanel, is those groups of users that share specific behaviors and characteristics. And so what I did here, I looked at customers who viewed an item more than at least once, and you can really, like I mentioned, there's so many limitless criteria you can select. But for this use case, for an example, selected like the spring timeframe or just a couple months, right? Between February and May 31st, they looked at an item. I could get more granular and say they looked at a specific brand, right? I just kept it more high level for the sake of an example. And then they also purchased in that time frame, right? They did that item purchase event, right? They purchased an item. But what they didn't do is they did not purchase an item in the last 30 days. Again, the time frame is flexible. Maybe we want to go back more like 90 days. They haven't purchased, and then I would push everything back. And then the high touch component that comes in here, these users are also in my brand affinity cohort that I created. And there I selected a specific model of a brand, like Vans, Nike, Adidas, what have you, right? It doesn't matter. But because I have that information from Hightouch, I can say, make sure that these users are also have this really high brand affinity. And so that's our step one, right? We build this very segmented cohort, very specific one. And then my step two on our next slide would be to send that data to OneSignal. And so because we have a bidirectional integration with OneSignal, I can just push that cohort out to OneSignal for them to create those personalized messages, because I've already selected those users that I know, like Colin mentioned in the beginning, we don't want to just blast everybody. We only want to focus on those users that haven't made a purchase within a specific time frame. And so Trig will now talk about the OneSignal piece and how those personalized messages are going to work.
Great. Thanks, Olia. Yeah, so my name's Trig Goldberg. I'm a sales engineer at OneSignal. And we can talk first a little bit about OneSignal. OneSignal is a self-service platform that allows you to manage and send push notifications, both web and mobile, email, SMS, in-app messages. And we've traditionally, self-service with a freemium model with premium features that you can upgrade to. So we have a huge install base with millions of customers logging into our dashboard, sending out messages, and hundreds of thousands of, websites and apps, and customers manage that. So we operate at massive scale and have a whole spectrum of customers that we work with. But more and more we see customers adopting it's important, obviously, we're talking about personalization, we're talking about the data. You typically will need a single source of truth. And we have a great partnership with Mixpanel, Hightouch, and that data needs to flow in to OneSignal because we're the action layer. We allow you to take that data and personalize messages. And personalization is not just, hello, name. And I love it when you get those emails where it says, hi, and it just has a comma because, the data wasn't there, and you get the marketing failure. So you often get those spam messages, and, that's obviously a bad behavior, bad personalization, but personalization is about segmenting and targeting different messages to different users. You're going to message your high value customers differently than others. And there's some that you probably shouldn't even message and that you don't really care about. You obviously care about retention and you want to retain all those users, but you want to focus your attention and your efforts on users that are going to be profitable. And it's all that foundation of the data. So let's go to the next slide to kind of talk about, what OneSignal can offer. So recently, we've rolled out some new features that have targeted the marketing persona because we sell to marketers, developers, and product people. And given that it's so easy to get started, we also invest heavily on letting developers easily integrate this, into mobile apps and websites. But our Journeys product is a new tool that allows you to orchestrate across channel and target and really curate those messages and create that funnel to target users' behaviors. And so, of course, you're going to be creating drip campaigns, onboarding funnels, activation campaigns, and it allows you to target specific messages at specific audiences and action and change that based on how users are engaging through that journey. And again, push will be both web and mobile. Email, of course, is super important. And we're making that super easy for you to tie those together, because oftentimes you talk to a lot of customers, they often already have an email team. I with a bad dad joke, I say the email team lives off in a cave and they're working furiously and they're a very sophisticated, capable team, but oftentimes they're siloed and they're not bringing those together. So that the goal, obviously, and what we're making it really easy to do is couple that so you can coordinate. And push and email are very powerful together. SMS for some use cases we see, and in-app messages, of course, are very tactical, because when you have that, it's an owned channel that is always going to be there for you, and it's that opportunity to get users to activate and opt in to maybe give them an email address, give you their opt in to push, and so forth. Now let's go to the next slide. If we look at a retention curve, an example of a OneSignal customer, we know that retention is hard. And obviously customer acquisition is getting more and more expensive. So first party data is super important. It's something that we need to, help us hone our campaigns. But we look, when you use messaging, when you use your own channels, you're able to really target users where they're at, activate them, get them to onboard, and you're going to see a lift. It's just a no-brainer, something that you really need to take advantage of and really need to do. And in fact, over time, you really probably want to start investing more energy, more money in your own channels, so you're spending hopefully less on your acquisition channels, because oftentimes when you see that retention curve, a lot of that money is important, but it's getting lost when you see that curve going down. So let's go to the next slide. Talking about the importance, I know it's self-evident, but how important is personalization? We've analyzed, billions of messages across our customer base, and we found at OneSignal that personalized messages have a 259% higher engagement rate. So that's pretty significant. And obviously we know we need to do it, but again, it's not just the name, it's their context, their brand affinity, what is their LTV, right? What's their lifetime value? How valuable is this customer? All of that really comes in. And that really, again, comes from the foundation of the data that Mixpanel, Hightouch are really setting us up with. Next slide. And we'll see that along with things that we've studied, we found some important strategies that you want to consider when you're rolling out your campaigns on your own channels, right? So obviously multi-channel is important. It's relevant for your use case, right? For e-commerce, obviously you're going to leverage email for transactional, you're going to leverage push for transactional, you're going to leverage in-app messages to really activate users when you have them there the first time you're activating and having that. But also there's other tactical ways you can use that. Number two here, email is super important. We just like to highlight that. And we found that across all of our customers that leverage it, it's really an important channel coupled with push, because of course it's that place outside of the application, web and mobile, where you have a place to activate and engage users. And again, not to be too redundant, but personalization, right? Super important. And ultimately, optimization, because it's a progression, right? You start, and number one, just start sending messages because you have to do it. Then take it to the next level. You get the data, you bring that in, you personalize it, you start activating. But ultimately, what's really having the impact, you need to test that. And that's really our customers that test and really focus on A/B testing. They are getting a bigger lift and they get a better understanding for that. So in our example, if we go to the next slide, talking about our shop case, right? The data has come in from Hightouch, from Mixpanel. We have, we understand the brand affinity. We know that our customer is interested in Vans shoes, for example. We know that they've spent a lot previously. So we know we really want to nurture that relationship. And now we're going to try out a strategy. We're going to try and give them free shipping to see if that will entice them back to, complete that conversion. So obviously that's just a hypothesis at this stage. We don't know that, but of course we wouldn't even be able to make that hypothesis if we hadn't had the data. So OneSignal, it's super important that we have that data, and now we can take action with OneSignal to send that out. Going on to the next slide, you'll notice that just to kind of illustrate where and how the data flows here. Obviously, this is one with Mixpanel. The cohorts are coming in, so you'll organize the audiences in Mixpanel. So are they high, medium, low, or whatever spectrum of value that you've created there? That data flows into OneSignal. But keep in mind, that also can come from Hightouch, and however you have that set up, you can be really flexible. But it is important probably to get that into Mixpanel as well, to have that single source of truth there, which we hear over and over again, where people will do that. And the better teams that we work with are leveraging that. And then once you take action in OneSignal, that those events, did a user click on the message? Did they open the email? Did they interact with the in-app message, which you can actually get some more information on? What did they click on? Those events flow back into Mixpanel, and now you have an understanding and can take action on that. And on to the next one. Olia, I believe you had a follow-up on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Trig. So just to follow up on that and kind of highlight what else you can do, right? Like Trig mentioned that not just having these messages, but actually testing and seeing what works best. That's where we come back into the picture. So because like you saw in the previous slide, the integration is bidirectional, we are now getting information back about those users, and we can analyze the effectiveness of that message. So as you can see, I created this screenshot of one of our very, very popular and very important reports. We call them funnels. They typically focus on conversion events. And so now I can see, well, based on the fact that the users in that cohort that I sent to OneSignal were exposed to this message, what did they do? And well, first question is, did they end up purchasing the items? And as you can see here in this example, I have close to 33% that actually did buy. That's great, right? But actually 43, I'm sorry, 43%. And then you can see that actually 57%, even though they were exposed and they probably opened, and we can see all that information in Mixpanel, they did not purchase an item. And okay, here we go. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm having issues. Okay, perfect. And so now, again, that's where the power of our cohorts comes back into play, because there is a little bit of overlap with some of the capabilities with Hightouch. And, that could be a really good question that comes up, right? Like, well, when should I build cohorts where? But now I can say, okay, well, show me those users that didn't purchase, and I would put them into a new segment. I would create a new cohort, and we'll talk in a second about like what else I can do. But the next question, like I mentioned, the first question is that did they buy or not? But if we go to the next slide, we can then see, well, what did they actually do? And Olivia, if you don't mind, thank you. So in our flows report or journeys, like a lot of folks understand these as user journeys, we can see those users who didn't buy, what did they do in our product? Again, I can create a cohort out of those in any step of their journey. I can make incremental changes immediately from this information. Sometimes it could be very meaningful to see where did they drop off, and maybe we can actually control that. We can make those changes. And then what Colin's about to talk about is we can test different strategies and better understand what's working, what's not, and really attempt and create big improvements. right? The more data we have, the more information we get, what's working, what's really making the user stick, the better we can build our product and then make those improvements that really make a difference. And so Colin, back to you to talk about how Kameleoon now comes in to offer those A/B tests.
Yeah, thank you, Olea. Gosh, it's just so interesting to like see how valuable it is to have data in to help you with like the ideation for whatever optimization you want to make. Like the last thing anybody wants to be doing is just guessing. So to have all that data at your disposal is just super interesting. As I kind of like mentioned early on, like the difference between a good program and a great marketing program is like the good ones are going to do the personalized messages. That's, I think, so great that now more and more of us are receiving personalized messages that are actually relevant to us. Now, to go from good to great, you have to optimize. The great ones are going to look at that and say, you know what? Wow, we only converted 43% of the people that we sent that personalized message to. What can we do to possibly like boost that conversion rate? And that's where, again, Kameleoon comes in. So before we kind of get into like what Kameleoon would do in this instance, I just want to back up and give those that are watching like a bit of a broader context. What the heck is Kameleoon? What do we do? So Olivia, go to the next slide for me. So we've been at this for a long time. And essentially the whole genesis of like Kameleoon is that experimentation is really hard. Marketing teams are going to want to optimize, like on the client side, they're going to want to optimize conversion funnels. Product managers and even developers are going to be wanting to optimize on the server side or full stack. Some teams are going to want to do really advanced personalization, and others are just going to be focused in like releasing with confidence or feature flagging. So the whole idea behind Kameleoon is to give all of those teams who have very different use cases and needs a single solution in order to optimize every kind of digital experience. So no matter if you're a marketer or a product manager, no matter if you're like brand new to testing or you're super advanced with optimization, Kameleoon is a single unified platform for your needs. Olivia, you want to go to the next slide? Now let's skip forward here. Like we're going to be focused on that example that I introduced earlier, the shop. Okay. So we're going to go to the shop with a single like keyboard shortcut. You can launch an experiment. It's that easy. I'm going to fast forward here and say like, all right, we know that we've sent out that email that Trig showed earlier. We knew that the person had a brand affinity to Vans. We knew their name. We knew their LTV score. We knew a lot about that customer. We knew that, in fact, that they had purchased over, say, earlier in the spring a pair of shoes, and we wanted to reactivate them. So now that person has received that message, we want to launch, we want to make sure that when they click on that email, if they came back, what kind of experience would they see? Olivia, you want to go to the next slide for me? So here, in this case, Emma, we know you love Vans. Like Trig said, we've sent out that email that's offered Emma, in this case, free shipping on her next pair, right? And what's so great is that we also know, thanks to Mixpanel, that, wait a second, this only worked 47% or 43% of the time. That means 57% of those users did not, or those customers didn't convert. So again, as that marketing team, we're like, all right, now do we just want to start throwing out our biggest discounts to everybody, thinking that the fuel that we've added, free shipping, isn't enough? Do we want to start giving, 20, 25, 30% discounts out to these important customers? I'm not so sure about that. We want to go about it in a smart, sophisticated way. So again, with Kameleoon, we make it really easy for you all to build those kind of smart tests. Instead of saying, for example, to all those users, here's a 25% discount. Let's hypothesize. Let's say let's see if we give a certain discount if it triggers a higher conversion rate. And if that lower discount voucher is sufficient, if we see a high conversion rate, great. We don't need to give 20%. We don't need to give 25%. We can start low and grow high. So the easy thing for us to do is go to the next slide, Olivia. Is just launch a test. We're just going to go in there and say, you know what? Let's reimagine this message. Instead of the email saying just free shipping, we're now going to say to a new audience segment, we're going to say, okay, we know that this audience loves Vans. We know that they purchased in the spring, but instead we're going to have a control. We're going to say like this control got the free shipping, and we know how they performed and how they worked. But we're now going to say like, let's send a new message out to a similar group, to the same group, but with a new discount voucher. We're going to say, hi, we know you love Vans, but here's 15% off your first order, right? Now we're going to measure the performance of this experiment. We call it, we'll call the variation voucher fuel, right? We're now adding discount vouchers to help trigger a higher rate of conversion. Olivia, you want to go to the next slide? So using your graphic editor, done, already made. You can use the code editor because there is going to be some code involved in this. For instance, welcome back, Emma. You don't want to have that horrible comma where it's like there's no name there. That's all very easy to do with the code editor as well as the graphic editor. Voila, you can easily make this kind of new optimized experiment, and then more importantly, test it. So now we're going to, now that we've built our experiment, we're going to allocate the traffic to it. So Olivia, next slide. Say, okay, I want, like I said, we want to test to make sure that this voucher fuel actually works. We're going to have a control. This is the group that did not receive the free shipping voucher, the discount voucher that only got free shipping. And let's see whether or not this new group actually gets a higher rate of conversion. Next slide. And then look how easy it is to like target that group. So all you have to do with Kameleoon and Mixpanel's integration is just go to create a segment when you build a target and say like, hey, show me my Mixpanel configuration. Now show me all, for in this case, customers that had an affinity with Vans but didn't convert. I want you to target this test to those users, see if it works. Okay, that's how easy it is. Drag and drop. So now we've selected that segment and we're going to apply it to our test. Next slide. What's what's interesting, I've got a duplicate here, but I wanted to share with you one interesting point about Kameleoon is that you can actually set the goals. I think, Olivia, go to the next slide for me, because I think it'll be more helpful. Sorry, I think I'm missing one. If you go back, Olivia, I'll just talk it through because it's easier. But what's really interesting is that you can also select your goals. So you can send the behavior of how people are performing in that test, that you can send them straight back into Mixpanel. So if you're using Mixpanel to understand like how your customer is behaving in the product, well, you can also use, you can send the data of the experiment straight back into Mixpanel so that you can analyze that test using, for instance, what Olia shared, that conversion funnel, which is so great. You can also use Kameleoon to say, you know what, I want you to use machine learning to optimize the KPI. So for instance, I want to say, show me, steadily move this experience over to customers that convert at a higher rate. We call this multi-arm bandit or dynamic traffic allocation. And you can just toggle that on with Kameleoon. And that's really awesome to do. And you can also optimize the goals for like AI to even learn and optimize as well. So again, there's a lot of like special features that help make sure that not only can you build a test easily, you can also make sure that it's reaching the right audience and those KPIs and that information is getting to your preferred analytics solution. Sorry, Olivia, the next slide. And then again, like the whole point of this experiment is to really be data-driven and to make sure that what we're doing is actually having a good effect. So we see here, like, okay, how is the control performing? We see a conversion rate there. Like everybody that received the free shipping voucher, we're seeing how they converted. Now we're seeing those that received the voucher with the discount code of 15%. We're seeing whether or not that had a higher conversion rate. And sure enough, it is. And what's so great about this is that you can just easily say, you know what, now I have confidence in this test based on statistical significance, which you can see there as the reliability score. You can say, now I want you to divert 100% of traffic for this segment to this experience. Or you can even say, you know what, this isn't working. It turns out that we, instead of offering maybe 15%, we should look at offering 20%. Again, the KPIs of this campaign was that it's not just enough to like drive sales. We also want to make sure that we're not just giving discounts to those that don't necessarily need discounts, or we don't need to give a high discount voucher in case it's not necessary. So again, by optimizing and experimenting, you're able to validate how your personalized messages are performing. And if you do that, then you're able to make a successful campaign. Olivia, you want to go to the next slide? So I just kind of like wanted, like, now we've kind of reached the funnel, but maybe we can like back up and just see how everything kind of came together. And I want Alec and everybody to jump in here. From what I understand, we've now managed to like activate data that was not only necessarily trapped in our warehouse, but is often sort of like stored there and is hard to find an easy way to activate it. We've made it, Hightouch has made it really easy for us to activate that data. Is that right, Alec?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things with Hightouch, again, is we're activating data that may not just be digital data, right? So in this case, we talked through an e-commerce store, but there are times where a company may have conversions happening offline, or again, data science models that are outputting into the warehouse, more than just behavioral events that occur on the site that you need to go and activate. And that's really where Hightouch stands out and comes in that we are activating all of your data.
Yeah, right on. And then Olia, I mean, again, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we were able to easily build these cohorts that we can use to not only like understand how they're behaving in the product in real time, but also we can use them for targeting purposes. Is that correct? Or targeting purposes?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's all based on users' behavior, and then those really important characteristics that we wouldn't know otherwise. So again, to bring it home, like with partners like Hightouch, we can now get so much more granular information from different systems into Mixpanel. So it could be Salesforce, it could be something else, right? Like it could be any other marketing tools, and just really take that analysis to the next level, and then that personalization to what we're trying to achieve.
Right on. So now the marketing team knows how who it has a brand affinity with, and they also know who's purchased, who hasn't purchased, and they can easily have that cohort. And then Trig, this is where you guys come in. The cohort is built, and now you can easily craft a message per that cohort. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. And that's super important because it really just helps you get better engagement conversions. And, you obviously can target across those owned channels that you have for results.
Okay. And, this is something I just, love to see is like, if you can do one, fantastic. Like you should be really proud. Again, there are so many companies that aspire to be data-driven and customer-centric and still struggle to activate the data they collect. So just like pat yourself on the back if you're already past step one. But then if you're actually building experiences and messaging based on like how your customers are engaging with your product, you should be incredibly pleased with yourself. Unfortunately, this is not a given. Is that right, Olia? Like it's an important achievement to be able to like use analytics in this sophisticated way.
Yeah, and most importantly, to be able to use it fast, right? Because like if we're getting that data 2-3 months later, or that's irrelevant at that point, right? Like there's a new promotion, there's a new style, there's new things that we need to be doing, and if we're just catching up on what the users did a while ago, that's too late. And the competitors who do this well will get that information right away.
Yeah, right on. And again, so I just always want to say, like, don't if you haven't even crawled, then don't try to run, right? So we're crawling, we're walking, and then we're going to run. So here now we've got real-time accurate data about our customers, and we're going to send out personalized messages. And I think, again, that's just Trig, I know we don't want to beat a dead horse, but my gosh, like the value of personalized messaging is just so stark.
Yeah, you see that over and over again. And of course, at the very least, you always get a better lift once you start sending messages, right? Send emails, send push that are relevant, of course, and you have that, but it just is a progression where you start to personalize, you get better engagement, but also you're adding more value. So you're building that relationship. And that's why it's super important because, and also you're not wasting resources, because oftentimes if you're just spraying and praying, you're targeting people that don't really care, and it's just a wasted message, right? So it's really about building that and learning. And then once you get more sophisticated and have those hypotheses, you can really verify that and optimize it even further. So that's kind of what I've seen that it
Yeah.
really works.
And that's the thing that I wanted to really like pause on, is like that difference between those that are now, we're at that walking stage, right? We're no longer crawling, we're sending out personalized messages, but to really be like a great program, to build out a great campaign, you got to do exactly that. You got to make sure that that message, when that customer receives that message, that the experience that they get is seamless, right? And when they come back to the site, they need to be greeted with not only the offer, but in this case, what was really cool, we didn't even have a chance to get into it, but you could even say like, not only Emma likes Vans, but you also know Emma's shoe size, right? You could show Emma all of the different Vans in her shoe size available in her area. You could offer her free shipping. So again, like creating that really rich experience is so important. But, even the best personalization messages aren't always going to have a high conversion rate. And that's why you need to like start to look at the conversion rates there, and then hypothesize how can you stimulate them further. You don't need, I think that's another cool thing about great programs, is that they don't just send out vouchers for the sake of sending out vouchers. They really hold those discount codes close to their chest, and they use them intelligently. So that way only those customers that are going to convert with a voucher receive a voucher. So really happy to like share like how you can build an experiment to validate that claim, because it saves you a ton of money and ultimately makes your campaign successful. So you have that high conversion rate of sales, but you also maintain that high average order value. Like, we talked about, Alec, the LTV, right? If you know that a customer purchased, has a high LTV, that they're purchased often, or they visited a page often, are you really going to give them like a high discount voucher code? Probably not, right? I mean, that they're already really interested in your product. And so again, having that information at your disposal is just like so helpful. We're getting near the end of time, but I know we also like have some questions. We've had some good conversations in our chat room over here. Love to hear the questions coming in. One thing I keep seeing is like, maybe we can touch on this. Like, Alec, do you need a CDP when it comes to Hightouch?
Yeah, no, one of the things that we've seen, and most of our team is actually from other CDP companies, they realize that once teams have their data warehouse in a good spot, you can just simply activate from a single source of truth. So historically with CDPs, you were running on a separate infrastructure where, let's say a CDP like a Segment or a Mixpanel, that had a single source of truth of a customer completely siloed off from a data warehouse, right? And teams were running analytics off of their warehouse. They were treating it as a source of truth, but trying to line it up across the two. What we found is that as warehouses get more performant, as they get cheaper, with tools like Hightouch, you can simply sit on top of the warehouse and activate your single source of truth and replace your CDP entirely.
Wow, that's fighting words there. Really interesting to hear. CDP killer there. I want to follow up on that real quick, but I want to save time for some questions for Trig and you, Olia, that have come in. Alec, how do I know if what are some clues that a solution like Hightouch is right for me?
Yeah, so Hightouch is definitely not right for all organizations. We are reliant on the fact that your data warehouse is in a good spot. Now, it's fairly easy to get that stood up, to get tools like dbt in place. They've made it easier to model your data and get your warehouse, your data cloud into a good place. If a team doesn't have a data warehouse in place, Hightouch isn't going to necessarily do a lot for them. Although we do pull from sources like Google Sheets, there are smaller use cases you can stand up. But our team is always happy to help point businesses and customers in the right direction. So don't hesitate to reach out to us if you don't feel like your data maturity is just there yet. We're always happy to help.
Yeah, I like this question here too. This came in. We saw an example of this personalized message. Trig, any like highlights you want to call out? Anybody doing some great personalized messaging work from your side?
The best that I've seen, with our Journeys product are people that personalize specifically on behavior. And for example, we have gaming customers that personalize based on how much spend, how much interactivity, how many sessions, where they are, specific ranges of what they've done and how much they've engaged and spent. So their whales are getting totally different journeys versus people that have not yet purchased, all the way down to, customers in the food space that have interesting and it's really targeted messages, and also the targeted promotions. And it's interesting. Sometimes you see like a common retail tactic of getting, coupons and promotions, a lot of coupons, but that doesn't seem to be the biggest tactic that works. And it's funny, I saw somewhere with like someone said your discounts and giveaways are a diamond bullet. It always works, but you can't afford it. So it's like one of those things where, maybe reflexively some people would think when they're personalizing, and obviously there's boilerplate stuff like, you're going to put names and, context of what they previously have purchased in there, but it's more about where they are in their journey. How profitable is this customer, and targeting things to add value to the relationship to help guide people to things that they will like. And I think that's the best examples of personalization that we've seen, and not just blindly throwing, discounts or things at customers that, because it does work, but it also is kind of a vicious cycle in the end where you race to the bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically making a personalized message based on the behavior of the customer at that specific time versus blanket table stakes personalization.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. With it, we've got a few minutes left. You take it away.
I just posted in the chat.
Softball question.
I'm with Alec. Yeah, it's hard to name. I'm obviously biased, but I just do love the user experience, the interface, like how easy it is to navigate Mixpanel. There's a learning curve like with everything, but once you know what you're trying to do, we have a very beautiful interface. And just like Alec mentioned, I love how easy it is to not only see like the conversions, right? Like, did our customers do what we want them to do, but actually what did they do instead? And it's very easy to move to that. So that's my favorite transition, right? Like of going from yes or no to exploring, that exploratory aspect. And that's the journeys and flows.
And when you think about that journey builder, kind of bringing it back to the whole stack, like let's assume that there may have been a retail store in this example, right? An offline conversion happened. You get that to your warehouse. Hightouch sends that up. And now in Mixpanel, you can not only see your online journey, which has all the site behavioral data, your offline data as well, and then as well as the email and push data, right? So you're kind of taking the whole thing together, using all of your data and then deriving insights from it and only feeding the machine over and over again.
Yeah, the feedback loop. Well, we're at time. I just wanted to say thank you to you all for taking some time out of your busy days to like introduce us. How does your platform work? What makes you special? And how do you come together to sort of solve this particular like use case? That's super helpful, and I appreciate everyone coming in. We're going to present this slide here. I always say, like, often we start a conversation, but there's just so much to unpack. We haven't even been able to get to the entire bottom of it. I'd love to like present your names and your email addresses. So if anybody listening has any questions about any of the solutions or the topics that we've talked about today, I really encourage you to reach out. Of course, all of you guys are on LinkedIn as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, and I really look forward to seeing your solutions grow.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for hosting. Have a great week.
Thank you. Have a great day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.